On this video, I'm going to be covering the interview. Being prepared for any interview is the key to any type of meeting or interview. Now, I'm going to be covering many aspects of the interview. Some may not apply to you, but some will. But I am certain that some are going to be beneficial to everyone. Now, I know that interviews can be very nerve-wracking for some of you, but some people actually get excited and it's exhilarating. However, if you have butterflies are not bad in your stomach as long as they fly in formation. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be covering 4 points that I want you to check off because they're very important. These are prior to your actual interview. You can do these at home. Number 1, I want you to go into Google or somewhere on the internet, and I want you to research some points about the company that you're about to interview with. And I want you to jot down 2 very positive points about that company. Number 2, be sure that you actually dress appropriately. Folks, let's just say that maybe you're an executive and you're going to a company and you have a suit and tie, and you begin to do a research and you find out that maybe they don't wear ties in that particular company. They've changed their dress code to a sharp casual. Then you're going to be overdressed, and the perception may be that you may not be a fit. Now, let's just say that it's jeans and t-shirts. Nowadays, they're doing some of those things. Just make sure that your actual dress is nice and pressed and ironed. Number 3, okay, I want you to go to the office supply store, and I want you to get yourself a good pen and a good notebook. Now, let's just say that you're going to a regular interview. One of these pads is fine. However, if you're some kind of corporate guy, make sure that you get something fancy like this and buy yourself a good pen, something that's going to separate you from other people. You will come across like you're prepared, like you're ready to start working, and you will separate yourself from your competition. Now, also bring a folder. I want you to bring a file folder like this and any kind of support material that you may have. Perk graphs. It may even be any kind of projects that you might have worked with. I know that I applied one time for a company, and I took all the different projects that I was working, and at least I was able to give them, and I actually got the job. Now I'm going to cover 4 additional points that I want you to really remember, but these are during your actual interview. Number 1, always be early. There are some interviewers that actually believe that if you're on time, you're late. So believe me when I tell you, be early. Number 2 is give them a sincere smile when you go shake their hand, and don't shake the hand up and down because we almost look tentative. Turn it 45-degree angle and reach for them and smile and go, nice to meet you. You see that how that came across very warm? Okay, number 3 is if you're sitting in a chair, don't look too relaxed and don't go at the edge of your chair because you're going to look desperate. Just be yourself. Number 4 is be prepared to answer these 3 questions. As trivial as they may seem, they're highly important. Number 1 is they're going to ask you, what are your strengths? Number 2, they're going to ask you maybe what are your weaknesses that you perceive. And number 3 is they're going to be asking you actually, if why should we hire you? What separates you from other candidates? Now, let's just say they don't ask you those questions. This is the time when you want to say, do you mind if I add a couple of points to this interview? And when they say yes, just say, my strength that I would bring to this organization is leadership and people skills. And then you give examples, and you do it very confidently. It's going to make a difference. You're going to shine. Number 2 is you may want to say, something that I could be better at is organization. That I'm not disorganized. And then what I normally do is I end up showing them my planner and let them, that's why I carry a planner. So what you've done there is you've taken a weakness and turned it into a strength, and they'll be very impressed with you. Now, I want to cover something very important. It's called posture. 3 components of influence. First of all, the words that come out only represent 7 to 10%. Number 2 is physiology. Physiology is very important because it's 55 to 63%, meaning the way your body moves. It has to be congruent with the words that you're actually saying. And number 3 is that the voice quality represents 30 to 35%. That means, folks, that only 7 to 10% are the actual words. So if you say, I'm excited, you notice how the words were only 7 to 10%, but you were incongruent by saying, I'm excited. Your physiology has to say, I'm excited. It's very important, these points that I'm telling you. So body language is critical because you don't want to be incongruent. I now want to cover a very advanced point that if you get good at this, it can land you a very, very big job. Personality types. Major corporations, Fortune 500s, and I've been there, are actually using personality types. Now, I do want to say a disclaimer because I'm not being paid by any of these companies, nor do I represent any of those. So it's a disclaimer. I'm going to mention Myers-Briggs, Personality Plus, Clifton Strength Finder. These are all different types of personality types that companies are actually using so that people can learn to get better at people skills and personality types. People are people, but they approach things differently. So I'm going to give you an example. I applied one time in the newspaper. An entire page on the right-hand side was the actual opening. And after going through 4 different interviews, I was a finalist among with 2 other folks that they should have had the job. They were a lot more qualified than I was, but I got the job. It wasn't because I was better. It's because I understood personalities. You had the vice president that was in the front. There was 3 vice presidents. The human resources vice president was a very happy-go-lucky type of person. When we got to the actual interview location, there was already a vice president sitting down. That was the logical, detailed, competent type, and I'll talk about that in a second. We waited and waited and waited. Finally, the third vice president was late to the actual interview. And we came in, he was a type A bottom line, and he said, okay, let's go ahead and get the show started. And it was like, he was the one that was late, but guess what? He was a type A, and I recognized it. Now, the person in front of me who was a type B, detailed, logical, competent, I noticed his nails were perfect. His actual notebook was beautiful. And I dropped my pen just to make sure his shoes were shiny. My point to you is that during this interview, I kept talking to the human resources vice president saying, how's your wife? You know, and the word fun almost. And I related to him. I would soften my voice to the vice president that was type B in front of me. And I sent them a bunch of graphs and stuff. And I said, here for your perusal. And the type A person, I kept saying, bottom line, you don't mind if I call you John? And I kept this up. Fun, detail, bottom line. I ended up getting the interview. And I felt bad because the other 2 people were much, much better qualified. If you can get good at those points, it's gold. Near the end of the interview, you need to ask your interviewer, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? Now, you're going to do that because you're about to turn the tables on them a little bit, and you're about to level the playing field so that it's going to add value to you. Now, follow me, okay? Question number 1, and what you want to do is take a look at your pad and look at it and say, okay, you're a 3rd generation security company. Very impressive, and it's all family owned since 1917. Very impressive. But how are your benefits? You see how quiet it was? What you're doing is you're actually interviewing the company, and subtly what you're saying is, maybe I'll go to work for you, maybe I won't. That might be a showstopper. Very important point, folks. Okay, the interview has ended. Everybody's getting up. You're about to say goodbye. Here's my point. Please do not say thank you. Instead, I want you to replace the thank you with a firm handshake, a straight eye to eye, 45-degree angle, and say, I enjoyed our conversation. What that's going to do is, it's going to give you character. Instead of coming across like you're actually thanking him, thank you for the interview. Does that make sense? Thank you. If you saw something you liked, please give me a thumbs up by clicking below, and please subscribe.